This is a station identification moment. You're listening to CPR Worldwide Media, a division of CPR Media Network, coming to you live right across the planet. Check out our website at www.cprworldwidemedia.com and our Facebook page at facebook.com/CPR Worldwide Media. This is CPR Media Network, coming to you live from the USA.
Well, looky here, a new listener. Hey, this ain't your little sister's radio station.
Citigold is an account from a global bank with over 200 years experience, offering international banking expertise across over 100 markets. Your dedicated investment consultant adds a unique personal touch to your banking experience. Complimentary lifestyle offers like Marhaba service and free global money transfers help you save on time and money. At the core of Citigold is your dedicated relationship manager, personally looking after your financial needs. Be it lifestyle privileges like golf, lounge access across the Middle East, or worldwide privileges, Citigold provides you with a rewarding experience. One card is all you need for all your Citibank accounts. As a Citigold client, you benefit from our international expertise and global reach. Citigold is more than an account. It's a personal banking service offering exceptional privileges, customer service and recognition worldwide. So wherever you are, Citigold will be with you.
The design of the Ford Escape is clearly intended to grab your eye. And your foot. Huh, ain't that a kick? The Ford Escape with the foot-activated liftgate. Go open up something interesting. Go further.
You think you know the story of Dracula. You have no idea. But I'm going to show you.
My enemies threaten to destroy my kingdom. I want the power to save my family.
Dreams.
Welcome to your life.
My name is Dracula.
There's a room where the light won't find you. What's happening to you?
I chose this. Because men do not fear swords. They fear monsters.
This is not who you are.
There's always a prize for power.
Everybody wants to rule.
I will not be defeated!
Dracula Untold, in theaters and IMAX, October 10th. The Ouija board has existed for centuries. It is used to communicate with the dead.
If there's a presence here, please make yourself known. This is a joke. Oh my God. It's not even real, okay?
It's just a game.
Ouija.
We're saying goodbye!
Rated PG-13.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome to the State Legislators Roundtable. Your host will be Charles Kacprowicz, Executive Director of Citizen Initiatives and Countermand Amendment. Our special legislator guests will be discussing important issues in their states that relate to federal encroachment on states' rights. The nonpartisan Article 5 single-issue countermand amendment can remedy many states' issues peacefully without the consent of Congress, the courts, or the executive branch. We will reclaim our constitutional republic soon. The nonpartisan countermand amendment is the missing piece of the Article 5 puzzle. Our nation is coming apart at the seams. So, we are countermanding.
Evening, folks. This is Charles Kacprowicz. I am the Executive Director of Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. Welcome to the State Legislators Roundtable. Roundtable discussions with state legislators and community leaders center around critical issues in the states as they relate to federal encroachment on states' rights and how the nonpartisan Countermand Amendment can remedy many of them safely and quickly. This is not a gotcha forum. We are not here to back our guests into a corner. We encourage serious discussions of issues important to our guests and their states. Subjects can include taxation, criminal law, energy, healthcare, social issues, federal land grabs, court decisions, education, executive orders, unfunded liabilities, EPA, and BLM, and more. You will learn how to protect your enumerated rights in the First, Second, Fourth, and Fifth Amendments, and how the states and their citizens can identify, define, and protect their unenumerated rights in the 9th and 10th Amendments peacefully and permanently. Roundtable members tonight are Sandy Toth, Executive Coordinator and Georgia State Director, Mike Coons, our National Director and Alaska State Director, and Kelly Gordon, National Coordinator, Texas State Director, and our producer. We now have 14 sponsored states for the nonpartisan Article 5 Countermand Amendment. We expect 2 more soon, and perhaps as many as 20 within 30 days. We have had the honor of befriending over 60 state legislators through the roundtable this year. These legislators are, in fact, America's finest statesmen who are working earnestly to find solutions to federal encroachment on states' rights. We have also had a lot of fun with some of them. Our program has been growing. We have become one of the fastest growing talk shows on the internet. Recently, our listening audience grew to 50,000 listeners, with 55 affiliated radio stations rebroadcasting the Roundtable live. To learn more about Countermand Amendment, go to countermands.us. That's with an S, countermands.us. Also, call your friends and associates right now. Tell them to tune into the show and learn what we are going to be discussing dealing with states' rights and issues in their states. Tell them to go to cprworldwidemedia.com/live-radio/. They will also be able to participate in our online chat as well. Our roundtable can also be heard on pnntalkradio.com. Tonight's special guest is the Honorable Representative Mike Moon from the great state of Missouri. Representative Moon has a distinguished career in the state of Missouri, and he is presently on the following committees: Professional Registration and Licensing, Ways and Means, Appropriations, Agriculture, Natural Resources, Elementary and Second Education and Higher Education, and Interim Committee on Emerging Issues in Agricultural Policies. I have read carefully Mr. Moon's bio, and I find him to be a man after my own heart. I enjoyed many of the statements that he made on very important issues. So right now, I would like to introduce Representative Mike Moon from the state of Missouri. And sir, you feel free to share what's on your mind, issues that are important to you and your state as they relate to federal encroachment. And we will have a discourse between you and the roundtable members, and we'll also have opportunity of addressing some issues that the audience can bring to our attention through the chat. So, Representative Moon, you feel free to just share what's on your mind, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be on the show tonight, and thank you for the kind introduction. I should first mention that I've been married to my wife, Denise, for 34 years, and we have 5 children. And also, we have 2 grandchildren, and that's been a real joy to us recently. And we do live in the state of Missouri in the southwest portion. Many of your listeners may recognize the name Bass Pro Shops, and they're located in Springfield. Their headquarters is, and we're about 20 miles west of Springfield. We live in Lawrence County, and it is the second largest cow-calf-producing county in our state, and we're in the top 10 in the entire nation. So real proud of that, and I'm fortunate to be. I'm not sure if I can call myself a rancher yet. That's more for the western and southern states, it seems like. But I'm a cattle farmer, and I've enjoyed doing that in the last 15 years. I recently retired with a 27-year career with a hospital in Springfield, and enjoyed the time there as well. I was elected to the state General Assembly in April of 2013. We had our current representative resign, and as a result of the special election, I was able to fill his last half of the session. And I was elected to my first full term just a month or so ago, and will be sworn in January. During the first year, full year that I was able to serve, I was able to participate in a lot of different, I thought, meaningful things within the state. One was with regard to a pushback against the EPA. They came up with as part of the air quality standards, a provision to disallow wood-burning stoves if they didn't have a catalyst or a catalytic converter in them, and that would have preempted and nullified a lot of folks here in Missouri from being able to heat their homes with wood. So we had a bill drafted that would say to the federal government, we're just not going to recognize that and obey that standard. Now, this is really kind of an interesting happening because the DNR, which is, I believe, the strong arm of the EPA in the state of Missouri, had some meetings with us, and they, quite frankly, said that they probably wouldn't enforce the air quality standard in the state. And at that same time, I was working with a city in my county, the city of Miller, Missouri, a population of about 700 folks, and they've had their sewage has been treated by a 2-lagoon water treatment system for about 50 years. It's been working fine, and there's been no complications with the system. But the EPA recently, as a part of their water quality standards, wrote a new rule that said that the ammonia limits would have to be below 1.8 parts per million. And some of the tests from this particular sewage treatment plant had about 1.84 parts per million, so just slightly above. Well, the DNR said that they would have to upgrade their wastewater treatment facility at a cost of $1.5 million. And for a town of less than 700 citizens, that would have been devastating. In fact, DNR did an affordability study and found that this $1.5 million upgrade would be a high burden, or place a high burden on them financially. And so the citizens contacted me and asked if I could intervene on their behalf. And so now we merge these two issues with the air quality and the water quality. And as I was meeting with the EPA, they told me that they wouldn't enforce the air quality standard, but they would be enforcing the water quality. And so in my interrogation, I asked, what is the linchpin in helping you to make the determination of which one of these you'll enforce and which one you won't? And they said, well, it comes down to resources. And I found that the federal EPA was giving the state DNR department about $204 million for the specific purpose of enforcing regulations. And so I got the bright idea one evening to file a bill that would strip out the $204 million from their budget, so they wouldn't have any funds to do that perform the enforcement of those standards. And so the next morning, it was really kind of humorous. As I walked to the chamber, I was told that someone was there to see me from the DNR, and I walked out of the chamber, and I was met with one of the officials, and they said, "Representative Moon, we understand you have a problem, and we'd like to help." And so it had to do with the water quality standards, and what they essentially told me was they wanted to work with the city, and there are 300 other cities in Missouri that are under the same mandate to improve their wastewater treatment facilities, and this would be devastating and come to the point of bankrupting these 300 towns. Wow. And so they told me that they'd be working with us to get what's called a multi-discharge variance, which means that the EPA would lump all cities under the same area into one classification, and they would essentially exempt them or give them a variance so they wouldn't have to comply with the new standards. Now, this is the part that really troubles me about this whole situation. As I read the EPA rule on why they adopted the ammonia standards, it was for protecting the freshwater mussel. Now, the freshwater mussel is an invasive species, and when you consider that, especially in the city of Miller, Missouri, the effluent that was coming from the two lagoon system into a freshwater stream, the aquatic life was healthy. And there was no harm done to any of the fish or any of the aquatic life. In fact, there had been no reports of human illness, but the human aspect was no concern to the EPA. They were only interested in the aquatic life. And so this is an egregious overreach in my estimation. And what that brings me to, and I didn't finish the part about the wood-burning stoves, but we did pass a bill that essentially said the state of Missouri will not recognize or enforce the air quality standards that is being proposed and enforced by the EPA. Even though the DNR said they wouldn't enforce it, we got that passed, so that will be a further protection. But as I consider, and I hope all the listeners will consider as well, the federal Constitution was written so that only one body could make laws, and that is the legislative body. In Article 1, Section 1, it says that, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, that laws will be made by the Congress, which is made up of the Senate and House of Representatives. So we have a president who issues executive orders or federal agencies which write rules and regulations that in essence carry the full force and effect of law.
Yes.
They're making law, and it's unconstitutional.
It is.
And what I would like, I'm glad you agree too. What I would like to see is one representative, just one, to stand up and say, Mr. President, you are committing impeachable acts by issuing these executive orders which not just control the executive branch. He would be okay. It would be fine with me if he issued an executive order that only was participating or contributing to, or I've lost my word there, but it's only affecting. That's what I was looking for. Only affecting the executive branch.
Yes.
But when he does things that affect the population at large, he's overreaching his authority. The same with the federal agencies. And so what I'd like to see is a representative, and we should have hundreds of them. If they understand the Constitution and who can make laws, they should be saying, Mr. President, federal agencies, you cannot do this. In fact, I contacted a congressman a couple of years ago and asked about these executive orders and federal regulations. And the response that I got was mind-boggling. I was told that historically, presidents have been able to, or have issued executive orders, and these orders, although they carry full force and effect of law, are not ratified by the Congress. Well, if the congressman understood what was stated, could understand that that's in violation of the Constitution. So I think he would be a hero if he would take action against the agencies and the president. But one of the common responses that I get from representatives is, even in our own state, the House has the sole authority and responsibility for impeachment, for filing impeachment articles. But the common response is, well, we could impeach, but he would never be convicted. And that's because you have to have, at least on the national level, a Senate who would convict. Now, this next Congress, when they're seated, will have a majority in the Senate. So if those arguments that were given were truthful, then if a person who made that comment really thought that an impeachment would be successful with a majority of the Republican Party in Congress, then they would file articles. But I guarantee you they won't do it, because it's not, there's no political expediency there. Many of us, and I have to include myself in there because I'm in the political arena now, look at what I do and how it will affect a future election, or will it cause me to lose favor within my own party so that I can't get anything accomplished. And that is not the right attitude to have. I'll go ahead and tell you, because you may not understand or may not know this about me, but since I was elected in the special election, the governor of Missouri has a responsibility constitutionally to call an election for the purpose of filling the seat. And in past times, governors had done so in relatively short time. And we had 3 seats open the second year that I was in, the first full year. 1 seat was left open for 14 months.
Wow.
The other 2 seats were left open for 8 months. And we had 3 districts made up of about 35 to 40,000 residents per district unrepresented for that length of time.
Wow.
And as I began to contemplate the plight of these individuals and comparing with the circumstances that I came out of, where I was the election was called in a relatively short time, and looking at our own Constitution, it appeared that the governor had neglected his duty. And so I filed articles of impeachment against our own governor, and I was told in no uncertain terms that even though I was doing the right thing, I would not be supported. And as a result, I wasn't supported, and the articles went nowhere. And it's disappointing for the primary reason that elected officials, first and foremost, take an oath to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of their state. And if we don't hold true and hold the line on the law, and this is the law of our land, then how can we be expected to do other things that appear to be right? And again, it goes back to political expediency. I had folks tell me that they could not support me because it might affect a future election or even a future job. And that's within our own party. And so I think the listeners probably know, and they probably are a little bit irritated with not just Republicans or Democrats, but with politicians in general, and I totally understand it. And I'm not trying to build myself up or put myself on a platform, but I just wanted you and the other listeners to know that we have problems in politics. I think we probably already realize that. And until and unless we elect moral and virtuous men and women into office, I don't think we're going to right the ship and get back on the right track.
Go ahead, sir.
I was just going to say I'll stop there and let you interject.
All right. First of all, what you have addressed and described, we would certainly confirm and agree with. We do have a problem with legislators, whether in Congress or in the states, not understanding what their duties are in protecting the constitutions of the state and the nation. The problem in Congress goes not just into politics. They have no enforcement provisions. if in fact, they depend on the Department of Justice, for an example. And that means that unless you have an executive that allows that to happen, Congress may impeach, but there's nowhere where it will go. Even summoning people to committees and putting them under oath, though they have that power, they can't really enforce anything. So that's their fault for not having made those adjustments in the laws reflecting the power that the Constitution gives them. But the other problem is, as with President Clinton, politics was so heavy in the Senate that even though he was without doubt guilty of breaking the law, and even the state of Arkansas canceled his law license simply because of his lying under oath. The fact is, they still didn't convict him, and that's because they couldn't get 66% of the Senate to impeach. So it's a terrible, terrible problem that we have. But I will add something, Representative Moon. I believe we have an answer for you, legislators, and we're going to bring Mr. Kuhn from Alaska here in just a moment. But the answer is the Countermand Amendment. We are absolutely persuaded and convinced that the state legislatures are the final hope that we have for protecting and restoring our constitutional republic. And with the Countermand Amendment, many of these national issues that are egregiously wrong and causing great harm to the citizens of the states and the sovereignty of the states can be corrected with countermands. With this, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but because we are going to run out of time here in this first hour, we do have to cut off at the top of the hour. I just found that out from somebody from our producer. But at any rate, and you can stay over, by the way, you can go into the second hour if you'd like. But what I'm going to do now is ask Mike, take a couple of minutes. We only have 10 minutes. I'm talking to Mike Coons now, and add to the conversation, especially about the wood-burning stoves that Representative Moon had addressed.
Yeah, Representative Moon, appreciate you coming on. I really do appreciate it. What you're having there last year was that polar, whatever they called it. It was some environmental weird name that they came up with. And we heard about what was going on in Missouri. And we were kind of, not in a bad way, but we were kind of chuckling because if we didn't do that, we would cry about what was going on down there compared to up here, because Fairbanks, Alaska sits in a bowl. It's completely surrounded by mountains. So you have an inversion layer that normally comes in during the winter months. And of course, it's 40 below, 50 below, 60 below, and it gets to 90 below. And so people supplement their diesel fuel heaters with wood burning stoves, which, it causes smoke. EPA came out, and if the air quality is a certain amount, you have to shut off your wood burning stoves. And if you are found to be still using that wood burning stove, you get a citation. If you get then you get a second citation. The third citation becomes a felony, not a misdemeanor, a felony. It's not a citation anymore. It's felony. And the good news is, as Charles said, is the Countermand Amendment, because Missouri has got the same problems that Alaska has. Missouri, Indiana, and Oklahoma, and all these other states, we all have very similar, if not identical, problems with the federal government and the federal overreach. With it being with the EPA. EPA is an equal opportunity, we're going to shaft you organization. The Department of Interior is the same way. The Department of Education is the same way. Our Countermand Amendment, when 30 states come together and say enough's enough, that this particular law, rule, regulation, executive order, what have you, be it the EPA, be it the Department of Interior, be what it is, whatever it is, that rule or regulation or even agency, that when those 30 states come together and meet that threshold, that rule is now repealed. And we can get EPA off the backs and off the throat of Missouri citizens, get them off the backs and the throats of Alaskans and Montana, people from Montana and Wyoming, right on down the line. That's the good news. It's just a matter of, we've got 14 states right now that are sponsoring. We'd love to see Missouri as the 15th, and all we need is 34, and we can really make a change in this nation that is going to last for hundreds of years.
I think that what Mr. Coons has said is right on target. We have an answer based on the Countermand Amendment, and in essence, when 60% of the states apply their countermand authority against any law or ruling or court decision or regulatory ruling, it automatically is rescinded. What I like about it is it can also address retroactively laws that are adversely affecting the states. And when you were talking about sovereignty a moment ago, Representative Moon, and legislative sovereignty, we're absolutely convinced that the sovereignty under Article 5 rests in legislatures. And the reason it does is because the legislatures created the federal government back in 1780. Right. And so for them to insert Article 5 so future generations of legislators can amend the Constitution and modify the conduct of the federal government when there's a dangerous overreach, to think that they don't have authority to do that, or they can do it only if Congress approves or if the courts approve, that's nuts. The fact is, the state legislatures define what the federal government is, and they define what authority it has. And then you can also modify it. Now, that's the message we want to get across to the legislators across the country. We don't want them to advocate this authority with this other nonsense that's out there that says that delegates are somehow equal to the founders, or that in order to get a convention going, you have to first address Congress and get their permission. All of that stuff is way beyond sovereignty. And at any rate, so you feel free. We only have a few more minutes, and we'll have to. And by the way, since we didn't have you on for a full hour, I will definitely ask Mike Coons to invite you back to have you on for a full hour at a near distant time.
Well, I thank you for that, and I will have to drop off at the top of the hour here, but sure to appreciate you having me on.
Well, and we have a few more. We still have a couple of minutes, so you just feel free to share what you can for a couple of minutes.
Okay. Well, it was kind of funny when we passed the bill that would essentially, I call it nullification against the EPA. We had a well-known Democrat in the House last year, and he stood up and argued for what we were doing. When we passed the bill, I went to him and told him I appreciated him helping us nullify that law, and he said, we didn't nullify anything. And I said, well, what do you call it? He said, we just told him we're not going to recognize it. And I said, well, it sounds like nullification to me. So whatever you call it, though, I believe that we can stand against the atrocities of a tyrannical government, because I believe that's where we are.
Well, and I think you're right, sir.
We've got to get our elected officials and even the citizens at large to understand it and realize that there can be a fight against it, because this country is too great to allow it to continue going downhill. And so I appreciate the efforts that you're making.
Thank you, sir. And okay, I think, are you still there, Representative Moon?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We would like to have you come back. Mike, would you make certain that you contact him and schedule another time so he can have the full hour? We did come up short this time, and I apologize for that because of some technical difficulties.
The only thing I can say is, Representative Moon, can you stick around just for a couple minutes when we go to break, because we can talk real quick and get things squared away on that.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks.
When we look at the issues that you're addressing, nullification is a process that has been talked about for decades, and maybe even longer. And the idea is that the states, on an individual basis, would address a particular problem that they have with the federal government. In Nevada, they recently had that with the BLM and with the Bundy Range situation. The difficulty is, even though the BLM backed off and there was no violence, and the matter is still pending, the law that allowed the BLM to come in, Bureau of Land Management, for those out there that don't know what that means, the law that allowed the BLM to come in and to push Bundy around is still on the books. And so even though there was a form of nullification in that example, it was not a solution. It was just something that delayed the possibility that the government could come back in and as a result reinforce that law. What the Countermand Amendment, what we do is we allow, not we, but the legislatures, define the law that they realize is an egregious wrong against their states' rights, countermand it, it's now rescinded, it no longer is possible for the federal government to come back in and enforce that law. It's over with. And on top of that, in conclusion, no, I guess we have another minute here. The fact remains that the state legislatures, Representative Moon, can actually define what their unenumerated rights in the 9th and 10th Amendment are. So this is a very important aspect of the Countermand Amendment. It adds permanency to nullification in a way that doesn't just push the government back. It literally says, government, you no longer have the power of law to enforce that particular law or ruling. So if you want to make a final comment, sir, please feel free to do so. We have about 1 minute.
Well, we in Missouri, I know that there are a number of legislators who are concerned about the overreach of the federal government, and I'm sure that's true in other states, as I'm hearing you and others talk about it as well. And I do believe in state sovereignty. I do believe that Article 1, Section 8 defines and enumerates the powers and authorities of the federal government, and they need to be held to that and to that alone. Everything else that is not specifically given to the federal government or prohibited by it is, according to the Constitution, the 10th Amendment is reserved to the states or the people. And yes. So I'm glad we're on the same mind
we are.
In that regard.
Sir, we have about 10 seconds. I have to go to station break now. Please stay on the line, and then Mike will address some other things with you. I want you back, by the way. I want to give you a chance to talk about more specific things that really are a problem with the Constitution not being honored. Folks, we have to go to break now to listen to our important sponsors, and we would like you to hold tight. Just stay with us. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Check out our website at www.cprworldwidemedia.com and our Facebook page at facebook.com/CPR Worldwide Media. This is CPR Media Network, coming to you live from the USA.
Well, looky here, a new listener. Hey, this ain't your little sister's radio station.
Citigold is an account from a global bank with over 200 years experience, offering international banking expertise across over 100 markets. Your dedicated investment consultant adds a unique personal touch to your banking experience. Complimentary lifestyle offers like Marhaba service and free global money transfers help you save on time and money. At the core of Citigold is your dedicated relationship manager, personally looking after your financial needs. Be it lifestyle privileges like golf, lounge access across the Middle East, or worldwide privileges, Citigold provides you with a rewarding experience. One card is all you need for all your Citibank accounts. As a Citigold client, you benefit from our international expertise and global reach. Citigold is more than an account. It's a personal banking service offering exceptional privileges, customer service and recognition worldwide. So wherever you are, Citigold will be with you.
The design of the Ford Escape is clearly intended to grab your eye. And your foot. Huh, ain't that a kick? The Ford Escape with the foot-activated liftgate. Go open up something interesting. Go further.
think you know the story of Dracula? You have no idea. But I'm going to show you.
My enemies threaten to destroy my kingdom. I want the power to save my family.
Drink.
Welcome to your life.
My name is Dracula.
There's a room where the light won't find you.
What's happening to you?
I chose this. Because men do not fear swords. They fear monsters.
This is not who you are.
There's always a prize for power.
Everybody wants to rule.
I will not be defeated!
Dracula Untold, in theaters and IMAX, October 10th. The Ouija board has existed for centuries. It is used to communicate with the dead.
If there's a presence here, please make yourself known. This is a joke. Oh my god. It's not even real, okay?
It's just a game.
Ouija.
We're saying goodbye!
Rated PG-13.
Welcome back, folks. We thank you for staying with us. The fact is, we had a very wonderful discussion with Representative Moon in our first hour from the state of Missouri. We were especially focused on issues of regulatory rulings and overreach by the federal government on Missouri states' rights and how the Countermand Amendment could address those. But now in the second hour, we have a distinguished guest by the name of James A. Settlemyer. I'll be giving you a little bit of information on him in just a moment. And we will be having a discussion dealing with issues relating to the great state of Nevada. We are, the State Legislators Roundtable is for the purpose of addressing issues that are important to our guest state legislators as they relate to federal encroachment. We also address issues that deal with the Countermand Amendment and how it might remedy some of those problems, if not most of them. And we also will be addressing issues that deal with how to get the federal government out of the business of the states exercising their sovereign authority under Article 5, which there's a great deal of discussion about these days. And I hate to say that we're right and everyone else is wrong, but I do believe that there's a great deal of confusion as to what it means to have sovereignty in state legislatures under Article 5, and we want to address some of those issues as well. Now, if you would like to learn more about the work we do at Citizen Initiatives, I am Charles Kacprowicz. I'm sorry for the delay in introducing myself. I am also the Executive Director and the Director for the Countermand Amendment. If you would like to learn more about the work we are doing, go to countermands.us. That's with an S, countermands.us. And you will be able to learn a great deal about, our explanations as to what sovereignty is, what the Countermand Amendment is, what sovereignty, the Sovereignty Amendment is, and we will, you will learn, I should say, different aspects of our work that I think you will find very, very enlightening. Now, Senator Settlemyer from the great state of Missouri, he has a distinguished history.
Nevada.
I'm sorry, that was Mr. Moon, but yes, Settlemyer is from Nevada, and I apologize. Let me just see if I can collect my thoughts here. He is the Senate Minority Whip. He has, that was in 2011. He has been on a number of performed a number of legislative services in his state. Senate committees on Commerce, Labor, and Energy. He's been on the Government Affairs Committee, Legislative Operations and Elections Committee, or at least groups that he's been serving under. Assembly committees on Commerce and Labor, Elections Procedures, Ethics and Constitutional Amendments, Government Affairs, Vice Chair, Legislative Committee for the Review and Oversight of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, and Legislative Commission's subcommittee to study issues relating to senior citizens and veterans. So He is affiliated also with the Douglas County Republican Central Committee. Now, Senator Settlemyre, I would like you to feel free to share with you what's on your mind, questions, comments, anything that you feel we should address on this program. We have been growing as a radio program. As a matter of fact, we might be the fastest growing internet program in the country right now. And on a recent program, we had 50,000 listeners and 55 affiliated radio stations who were rebroadcasting us. So we are really going everywhere, and our audience is really focused on issues that relate to states' rights. So, Senator Settlemyre, please come on board. Thank you for joining us tonight and share what's on your mind.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be on, and I appreciate the intro. Fortunately, the state of Nevada, we actually had a little bit of a change. So now I'm actually went from the minority to the majority, and now I'm actually the chairman of Commerce and Labor, vice chair of Elections and Procedures,
wonderful,
on natural resources. So
wonderful.
That's a good thing. And
yeah.
We actually flipped both houses. So now a lot of ideas, such as the 10th Amendment bill that I always brought every session, actually this time will actually get more than just a hearing. It actually has an opportunity to get votes. So that is a good thing. And obviously I'm very in favor of issues dealing with states' rights. You know, in Nevada we've had numerous problems with BLM, the Forest Service. I serve on an oversight committee for Tahoe, you know, which is a bi-state creation. And that's a whole different level of complications up there that has been created. We need to try to find a way to allow the state, in my opinion, to more directly deal with the issues and problems on our land, because we are the most familiar with them since we are here, rather than individuals who I may respect from afar, but their ability to govern from afar is not as well as those that are on the ground. And, you know, whether it's the Endangered Species Act dealing with sage-grouse in our community, or the newest one I'm told is a cuckoo yellow-billed bird, which sounds cuckoo, but anyways, with that being said, yeah, it seems appropriate the way we're going. Even to the concepts of, you know, whether it be education in the form of Common Core, or whether it goes to all the other myriad of subjects. You know, we're in a strange situation here in the state of Nevada, much like you guys are up in Alaska, where you're in a situation where we have, in total, 88% of our lands are owned, whether they're owned by the state or the federal government. So there's not that much private land around. Makes it kind of hard to get things done.
It does indeed, and we're sympathetic to that. And I know Mike is from the state of Alaska. Has about 67% of the land up there that's under federal control. We're concerned about that. Senator Settlemyre, I would like to address, because we do have you for a full hour here, I would like to address, for the purpose of helping our audience understand some of the issues in a context that will lead to state legislative sovereignty. I would like to talk a little bit about sovereignty itself. And I'm going to just share what I understand is our history in state legislatures as to how sovereignty was passed down. You know, when the Articles of Confederation was written, and we were under the nation states were under the Articles Constitution, it required unanimous vote by the legislatures before an amendment could be passed or ratified. It also required unanimous consent between the states on certain tax issues and so forth. Unfortunately, it literally paralyzed the federal government, and they were unable to perform. We almost lost the Revolutionary War because of it. They couldn't even fund the army. And then after we did miraculously win the war, we almost lost the revolution simply because the economy was collapsing, and there were screams that we have to go back to a monarchy, which shattered General Washington's heart terribly. He was just bewildered that anyone would even think that way after what he had been through for several years. But here's the crux of what I'm trying to bring our attention to. The states were nation states. They were sovereign entities that entered into this confederation under the Articles, and it didn't work because primarily of the unanimous consent problem. But at the same time, they knew something had to be done, and that became the Constitutional Convention. The first one in Annapolis didn't work, and the second one was the Constitutional Convention. Now, I know you know all of this, but I'm saying some of this for the purpose of helping our audience see the history of this issue of sovereignty. The first issue that had to be addressed before the deliberations at the new Constitutional Convention started was sovereignty. They had to decide if, in fact, it would be voting at the convention based on population or if it would be voting based on one vote per state. That was the first issue, even before they had deliberations started. And so a gentleman by the name of George Whitton put a committee together, and that committee addressed this plus several other issues, but this was the focus of most of their concern, and recommended to the Constitutional Convention before it started that it would be a Republican type of convention with one vote per state. Well, the larger states didn't like that, but there were enough smaller states so that they won the day. And as a result, that convention was a Republican form of convention, and every state had an equal vote. Now, when they finally put the Constitution together, they came to Article 5. That's how they passed the sovereignty down as a nation state to future generations of legislatures that you represent. And it is in Article 5 whereby you have this one restriction, that is to propose amendments with regard to how the federal government should function and how the Constitution should be amended. So my point is that sovereignty was never lost by the legislatures. You do not need Congress's permission in order to amend the Constitution. You don't need Congress's permission in order, the court's permission to do that, and you don't need it from the executive. You don't even need it from the regulatory agencies. You are the sovereign body. And when 34 states make a specific call on an amendment that they want to propose for the purpose of having the rest of the states decide how to amend the Constitution, Congress has no option. They have to convene that convention. Contrary to all the stuff that's going on right now, especially with Congress and their research, Congressional Research Service and so forth, they have all kinds of convoluted explanations. It's not Congress that decides these things, it's you guys. And in conclusion to these comments, I want to add this. I am firmly convinced that we will not restore our constitutional republic unless state legislatures claim that sovereignty, enforce that sovereignty, and make certain that they don't do so in a way that allows the federal government to tell them what authority they have. I guess I have to say one more thing. When the Supreme Court makes a decision, let's say in Roe versus Wade, I happen to be very pro-life, but the fact is, when they made that decision, and there was no constitutional basis for it other than an unenumerated right that they said that the woman had that was never really defined well, the fact is they amended the Constitution without ratification by the states. That's the supremacy clause. You guys can stop that with our amendment, our Countermand Amendment. And you can actually prevent the Supreme Court from doing that, forcing the federal government to look at you as partners in government rather than as subjects that are going to have to kowtow to the will of the federal government. Okay, I just would like you to share what's on your mind, sir, and maybe you'd like to respond to some of the things I have tried to advance here.
I appreciate that. I understand exactly where you're coming from and where you're going. The concept that so many states have gotten together. My state of Nevada has had 2 constitutional amendment resolutions that we passed. One was for a balanced budget amendment. One was for the idea of term limits. And our citizenry actually voted for term limits in the state of Nevada. And then a judge came down and said, well, that's fine for the local offices, but you think you have the right to say what happens to the federal offices, and you don't have that right. So we're going to blue pencil correct that, and it doesn't apply to federal offices. Oh, yeah, it doesn't apply to judges either. And just change that. And those are some of the issues that come about. It's like, listen, if the people vote on something and it's within their constitutional purview, why shouldn't they be allowed to vote on it? Now, that doesn't mean you have the right to vote on things that are unconstitutional. If the entire state gets together and says we don't think anybody should have a gun, well, too bad. The Constitution has a different opinion of that. But I understand exactly what you're saying, and it's very frustrating to have, being ruled from the bench,
Very much so. And it is an ongoing problem because we don't have anybody in Congress who understands how to restrict, or the courts for that matter, how to restrict their their responsibilities and their authority in making laws and decisions from the bench. They don't understand that they didn't get their sovereign authority from themselves. What has happened is that the federal government now is telling you what that sovereign authority is. That's got to stop. And once with the, and I'm going to go back to the Countermand Amendment because we think it's a good part of the solution that the states need. And we have no axe to grind in this. The fact is, we don't have the authority, that is citizens' initiatives, nor the sovereign ability to insist on anything. But we want to get this tool in the hands of the legislatures so that they will decide what needs to be confronted. Take, for an example, the Bundy situation that you guys just wrestled with very recently. And here, I thought it was 81% of the land that was controlled by the federal government, and now I'm being told that it's 88%. It's a tremendous amount of land that the government should not tell you how to operate and how to run. With the Countermand Amendment, the laws or the rulings that allow, well, the congressional statutes as well as the EPA rulings and the BLM rulings that allow the state to be under the mandates of the federal government can be rescinded. And I'll tell you, based on the knowledge we have from other states, and we've had, I say, 60 plus legislators already on this program, and I think it's even more than that. I haven't had a recent count. But the fact is, land grabs by the federal government is a big, big issue. We had a couple, three legislators from New Hampshire, and I never dreamed that New Hampshire would have a land problem, a land grab problem. And yet they do. 20% of their land is controlled by the federal government. That's a little tiny piece of geography there in the New England states. So it's not, that's just one issue that can be addressed. And you guys are the ones who have suffered the most because of so much of your state being controlled by the federal government. That's got to stop. The Countermand Amendment can do that. Okay, go ahead, sir, and add to that if you care to, and we'll also ask Mike to get ready to add some thought to this.
Yeah, the concept and ability to tell the federal government that they've overreached, I mean, we all know that. I don't think that's even a debate amongst anybody that the federal government has overreached their, the directives. I mean, they so far have exceeded things. To say it's sad to be an understatement. We need to get back to allowing the states to have control on their own properties, their own lands, because they're the best person to do that locally. Unless there is, a national defense issue. I mean, we have some areas in Nevada that they've detonated, I think, something in the neighborhood of 217 above-ground nuclear bombs. And I think it's probably right that the federal government kind of take charge of those lands, since, after all, they're the ones who made it glow at night. So, different things. But as far as everything else, telling individuals when and where they can go on their own public land, cutting people off of access, stating that you don't have the right to go out there with, even on foot, creating wilderness areas that don't allow access by vehicles, and even some areas that they say are so environmentally sensitive that humanity can't go there.
Yes,
and,
yes.
It's just very troubling to hear that type of information from your government telling you what to do on lands that your taxes should be helping to pay to keep open and accessible to the public.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to ask Mike Coons, our National Director, to come into this conversation in a quick moment. But before he does, I want to make this distinguishing comment, distinguish nullification from rescission. The object, or the practice of nullification, which really has been a failure over the decades, it puts the state in a place of jeopardy. BLM and the state of Nevada and the Bundy Ranch deal were in a very difficult place just a few months ago. And yet, even though BLM backed off and they decided not to use force against Bundy and his cattle and the land that they possessed to collect taxes and so forth, all the issues I'm not totally clear on, but the fact is they decide to back off. That didn't settle the issue. That was a kind of nullification, but it didn't settle it, because now the BLM can come back in and enforce that ruling that they made against Bundy in a month or two. And the whole thing goes over and over again. But if 30 states countermanded the law that the BLM was using in order to enforce this tax collection provision that they were placing on Bundy, if the 30 states out of the 50 countermanded that law is automatically rescinded. It's gone. The BLM can't come back in anymore. So what the Countermand Amendment does, sir, is it allows the states to define their unenumerated 10th Amendment rights and their 9th Amendment rights for their citizens, for that matter. You actually identify an issue that needs to be addressed. You're saying you went too far, federal government. We want to be respected as partners in government. We don't want to be subjects to your mandates. And at the same time, the moment that it's countermanded, you've defined your unenumerated right. Now you are in a whole different stead with the federal government on that issue. And hundreds of different issues can be addressed that way, many of which will be of interest to the state of Nevada. Now, Michael, why don't you come in here and share a little bit on what's on your mind, especially relating to the Delegate Resolution?
Yeah, okay. Senator Settlemyer, thank you so much for coming, especially on such short notice. We talked extensively before coming on the show, and I know one of your major concerns is at the convention what these delegates will not do, and what the repercussions of any that go against the direction of the state legislature that sent them there. Is that a correct summation?
Correct. There are many people in my community and in the state of Nevada that are very much afraid of a runaway convention. We had some individuals go back to our national, Republican Party convention in Florida a few years ago, and they were pledged to vote a particular way, and they actually chose to vote counter to what they were pledged, thus eliminating the will of the people who had said, no, we want this many votes to go for this person, this many votes to go for this person on the first round, and then after that you're non-binding. But for the first one you are binding, and do so. And so that fear in our state especially, because that occurred, is that you will have a runaway convention. Now, I don't necessarily feel that those fears are as founded as some people do. I think that it can be controlled. However, I will be introducing legislation myself in the state of Nevada that would create a situation that if you did go rogue, if you did decide to go off of your charge, that not only would the rules pertaining to criminal procedure apply, but also civil, create a private cause of action, including attorney fees, so that by the time you're done, if you decide to go rogue and invalidate the will of the people, or to go beyond your charge, well, you might find yourself in a situation having to mortgage off your kidney, because you're going to have to do that to pay for the legal battle that will come at you.
You're going to go to China.
That, to me, is a fair thing to do.
And that that is exactly what we had talked about, because the issue with our delegate resolution, and I hope that you've had time to look at our countermand amendment and the delegate resolution that goes on with that. The nice thing about this, the thing that we're running into, and I got to kind of keep track of my time here because I got 4 minutes. One of the things we're running into a lot is several states that I've talked to, state legislatures, have been that they want to have this convention. They want to be able to, call a convention for, whatever a particular amendment that's on their flavor, but yet they want to send down delegates with the instruction, well, we want you to write this amendment, and versus taking the time there at the legislature to approve an amendment. So, like in our case, we've got a countermand amendment that we have written. We've taken a lot of time and effort in doing so. As a grassroots organization, this is something that we give to you, the legislature, to look at, to say, yes, we really like this, and to be able to take that before to committee hearings, discuss it, vote on it, get it on the floor, get it up, up and down. And then the beauty of that delegate resolution that is with that Countermand Amendment is not only that it defines the convention and how the convention will be run, from everything from Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution being a Republican form of the convention, and then one state, one vote, to the fact that the delegates are ambassadors to the state, but also the president and the committees and and the votes and everything else. That all makes that so. So then that way, you have done that there at your state. So when it goes down to that convention, and we have 26 or more states that are all doing the same identical thing, all have the same delegate resolution, all have the same Countermand Amendment, all have the same oath to the delegates, all have the same instruction to the delegates that you will vote for yes on this, and that's the only thing that you're down there for, really, other than to discuss other states, make sure that everybody else is on board. Once we do that, it's safe, it's efficient, and it's timely. We submit that this thing could be done in a week, versus those states that want to send down their delegates and have the instruction, well, we want you to write a Countermand Amendment, or we want you to write a balanced budget amendment, or whatever, and could they go down there and upwards of 500 some odd delegates down there with differing instructions, differing thoughts, some liberal, some conservative, some moderate, some extreme right, some extreme left, what have you, and trying to come up with to write something. We did that in 1787 when we had some real geniuses like Madison, Mason, Jefferson, those guys. Sadly, don't have too many of those around. But I see we're down to 45
Mike,
seconds, so I'm going to fall off.
I have to commit here just for a minute.
Okay,
Senator,
go ahead.
Please hold tight. We're going to go to a break in a few seconds. And then at the top of the hour, at the other end of the top of the hour, I should say, we'll have you back in commenting on anything that you want to address. But there is one distinguishing aspect, is delegates at the Constitutional Convention versus delegates at an Article 5 convention are not equivalent. Let's talk about that after the break in just a few seconds. Okay, folks, we are going to go to break. We would ask you to stay with us. We need to hear from our CPR sponsors. And
you're listening to CPR Worldwide Media, a division of CPR Media Network, coming to you live right across the planet. Check out our website at www.cprworldwidemedia.com and our Facebook page at facebook.com/CPR Worldwide Media. This is CPR Media Network, coming to you live from the USA.
Well, looky here, a new listener. Hey, this ain't your little sister's radio station.
Why do cities shine so bright? It's the glow of opportunities, of ideas bouncing off one another, of countless people, every one of us, striving to succeed. Right now, in cities everywhere, ideas are being born. New thinking that will put us in awe of what people are capable of. That's what lights cities up, and helping people and their ideas to burn even brighter, so that communities, businesses, and you and I can grow. What if a bank made that its job? For more than 200 years, Citi's job has been to help empower people and business. Now, around the world, it's wherever people gather, wherever ideas come alive. It's wherever you are. The world's city.
It's not about how many miles you can get out of the C-Max Hybrid. It's about how much life you can fit into it. The Ford C-Max Hybrid, with an EPA estimated range of 540 miles on a tank of gas, and all the room you need to enjoy the trip. Go stretch out. Go further.
You think you know the story of Dracula?
You have no idea, but I'm going to show you.
My enemies threaten to destroy my kingdom. I want the power to save my family.
Drink.
Welcome to your life.
My name is Dracula.
What's happening to you?
I chose this. Because men do not fear swords. They fear monsters.
This is not who you are.
There's always a prize for power.
Everybody wants to rule.
I will not be defeated!
Dracula Untold, in theaters and IMAX, October 10th. The Ouija board has existed for centuries. It is used to communicate with the dead.
If there's a presence here, please make yourself known. This is a joke. Oh my god. It's not even real, okay?
It's just a game.
Ouija.
We're saying goodbye!
Rated PG-13.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome back, folks. This is Charles Kacprowicz, the Executive Director for Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. You are tuned in to the State Legislators Roundtable, and we have a very special guest tonight, Senator Settelmeyer from the state of Nevada, and we've been having a very, very positive and encouraging conversation. Now, the purpose of the roundtable is to discuss with state legislatures critical issues in the states as they relate to federal encroachment on states' rights and how the nonpartisan Countermand Amendment can remedy many of these safely and quickly. This is not a gotcha forum. We are not here to back our guests into a corner. We encourage serious discussions of issues important to our guests and their states. Subjects can include taxation, criminal law, energy, healthcare, social issues, land grabs by the federal government, court decisions, education, executive orders, unfunded liabilities, EPA, BLM, and a lot more. What I like is when the discussions center around how to protect our enumerated rights in the Constitution and how we can also identify and protect unenumerated rights through state legislatures in the 9th and 10th Amendments. So tonight, we're going to bring our conversation back with Senator Settelmeyer and ask him to add anything that he wants to at this point. And then we're going to have Sandy Toth, our executive coordinator, share a few things on her mind. Senator, you feel free to just bring into this conversation anything that you'd like.
Sure. We were talking a little bit on break, that one of the aspects that's interesting is that once the concept of a constitutional amendment comes forward, whether it be an amendment, convention, or whatever, how the states are allowed to ratify those concepts and how there are different concepts out there, whether it be going to the state legislature or whether or not you actually have a state constitutional convention. And so maybe we could talk a little bit about that and how they differ and why they differ.
Well, I think that we can do that, sir. And perhaps we should at first identify the two ways in which the Constitution proposed amendments can be sent to the states for ratification. One of which is the Congress itself. They have that first prerogative, and when 2/3 of both houses agree on a particular amendment and its wordings, it goes back to the states as a proposal to be ratified. However, if the ratification of that amendment is not necessarily is not to be decided by Congress as to if state conventions are required. that just goes back to the legislatures, and the legislatures decide that. There is no state convention there. On the other hand, when the state legislatures are applying to Congress to convene a convention for the purpose of it proposing amendments, which is what Article 5 is all about, proposing amendments, not to usurp the Constitution's supremacy and perpetuity. The fact is it's for the purpose of modifying the Constitution to remedy egregious wrongs suffered by the people that the federal government won't address. And so when that application is completed, 34 applications then are sent to Congress for that specific amendment. Then what happens, Congress has no ambiguity. They can't confirm, they can't say that we don't know what kind of a convention this is going to be. It is, in fact, settled in the application for all of the applying states. Now, when those applying states have their convention convened, and then they have the delegates doing their bidding, because under our thinking and with our delegate resolution, the delegates going to that federal convention under Article 5 become ambassadors of the delegates, not free agents. When that happens, the delegates do the bidding of the legislatures in order to avoid any conflict with the Article 1, Section 10 that prohibits the states from having compacts without Congress's approval. So in essence, the ratification process, however, after the convention has been convened and the decision has been made, now they can send a request back to Congress that says we would like this amendment to be ratified through state legislatures, or we would like this amendment to be ratified through state conventions. That's what the Constitutional Convention did. They had sent a request back to the Congress of the Confederation, requesting that the Constitution be, I have to correct myself, they sent the request that the amendments to the Constitution be ratified through state conventions, and the new Congress agreed to that. But the fact remains is that there is an option that Congress has after the convention has decided that it wants the amendment to go back to the legislatures for ratification. Congress can require a state convention rather than state legislatures. I want to see state legislators, but at the same time, that is an option that they have, and we have to deal with that.
I find it interesting, that you have U.S. Congress has over the years proposed about 1,000 different amendments to the Constitution, and coming forward, they've only sent about 33 to the states, and 27 of those have been ratified, and that's with their process, which is 2/3 of the vote. It's interesting, though, that if the state legislatures get together, it's not 2/3; it's actually 3/4. Correct?
For ratification.
If the state legislatures propose an amendment, send it to Congress, the 3/4 of us have to get together. Correct?
Right. Yes. Well, to make the application, only 2/3. When 2/3 of the state legislatures apply, that's 30. That would be 34 states. On the other hand, to have it ratified, whether it comes out of Congress or as a national federal convention, you still need 3/4 of the states to ratify it. Either mode of proposing the amendment still requires 3/4 of the states.
Yeah, which definitely makes sure that the majority does not overrule the minority. It allows the viewpoints of both to be expressed, so that is a good thing.
That is.
There are many things that need to be addressed.
That is why in my understanding, that is why the founders, when they designed Article 5, they decided that they would protect the state legislative sovereignty as nation states in Article 5, but that they would do away with the unanimous vote requirement, which meant that one state could hold the other 12 hostage. That happened with Rhode Island. They were trying to hold the convention hostage. They actually abdicated their role because they never showed up. But at the same time, the 3/4 to ratify meant that there was some latitude here for disagreement, and the minority, though they would have an opportunity to vote, could lose, but they would lose to a sufficient majority so that there would be little to complain about. And the 3/4, though, allowed the federal government to function, which they couldn't under the Articles of Confederation because of the unanimous vote consent. And so there is wisdom in that. And one of the reasons that I like the Countermand Amendment, the way it's written with 60% of the states countermanding before a law or ruling can be rescinded, is that it still allows the federal government to do its legitimate role. The federal government has the legitimate responsibility to protect the states, to protect the nation, to carry on certain interstate settlements and international treaties and so forth. And so for them to have that taken away, because we would have required only, say, 25% of the states to countermand, and that law is rescinded, what we would have done is created an oligarchy of states that would have been confounding the federal government, keeping it from functioning. But because it's 60%, there's still a sufficient majority there where the losing states that didn't countermand could still recognize that they had a vote, but there was a sufficient majority to see some respectability to the countermand and rescission. And the federal government doesn't have to worry that every time a countermand is started, that just because someone had the idea of doing it, it's not going to happen with one or two states. There is a legitimate responsibility that the states have in reaching that threshold of 30 states, or 60%. Okay.
I agree with that, and it's important to make sure that we don't have that majority-minority. And at first, maybe I view that differently because our state population is so small. But I understand, that you get to those conventions, it's one state, one vote.
Yes.
It's something that always concerns you.
It's a big problem. We have been deeply concerned about it, and because it was the main issue at the Constitutional Convention, as I was addressing before. And every time you have an Article 5 convention, and we would like to see every one of them be for a single issue amendment, pre-approved, because we see the legislatures as the sovereign deliberative body. Every time you have an Article 5 convention, you've got to decide that question as to how the delegates are going to vote all over again. Are you going to have the 55 delegates from California having one vote apiece, and Wyoming only gets one vote? Is that the way you're going to conduct that convention? Well, the only way you can control that is to have a delegate resolution that predefines how to organize the convention. It predefines by the state, the sovereign deliberative status of the states. It predefines how you're going to vote. It's going to be a majority vote. So now you can protect the Republican form under Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. You can protect that convention so it is a Republican convention. Not a Republican Party convention, but that is, every state has one vote. Otherwise, there is no real threat, by the way, of that convention ever becoming an open convention, out-of-control convention, in the sense that it will usurp the authority of the Constitution. The Article 5 very strictly says the purpose is to propose amendments, not to usurp the Constitution. And there is a mandate assumed in this that says the state legislatures have to recognize that their fathers that gave them this mandate in Article 5 back in 1787, they required future generations of legislatures to recognize the supremacy of the Constitution and the perpetuity of the Constitution. So the purpose is not to destroy the Constitution in a convention. That's been an argument that the guys on the far right, the John Birches and the Constitution Party and libertarians and so forth, have been making for so long. They've paralyzed the legislatures over the last 30 years. And by giving them information that says, well, you can only have a constitutional convention. Under Article 5, there is no constitutional convention. Now, if the states, and I'm going to bring Sandy in here in a moment, so just kind of hold on, Sandy. If the states did want to change the Constitution, they have a different way to do that. How would that happen? They would secede from the Union. They would call a convention totally independent of Article 5, because Article 5 doesn't give them the authority to have an open convention. They then would create a new document to govern themselves, and they would form a new government. Then they could do away with the Constitution in Article 5. But as long as the legislatures recognize Article 5's specific purpose is to amend and modify the Constitution to rein in government, there is no danger. Now, since there is no constitutional, con so-called Constitutional Convention option in Article 5, there is one problem that we have to deal with. That problem is the possibility of mayhem at the convention. If you don't have delegates bound to an agreement that the legislatures control, and it's a contract between the legislatures and their delegates. It's not between states, so we don't violate Article 1. If you don't have that contract in place, then those delegates go to that convention with the understanding that they make the rules. Now you could have mayhem because of California having 55, Wyoming having 1, and delegate and so forth. And you can see the outcome of that is going to be a disaster for our Republican form of government. Okay, before I bring Sandy in, would you kindly add to that, Senator, if you'd like? We would love to hear your comments. Senator Settlemyre, did we lose you? I see you're still up on my screen.
No, sir. Yeah, I appreciate everything you've been saying. I agree a lot with what you've indicated. I still am concerned, and so are my citizens. And one of the things that I've discussed is that, sadly, even though there is no reason to be fearful, people are still fearful. And because of that fear, whether it's right or wrong, it's still there. And the concept that I'm talking about, where you have a private cause of action or a criminal cause of action, would make them feel more secure with the process, and that might help us further the concept.
And we agree with that, and that's part of what is included in the delegate resolution. It allows you to define however you want to impose penalties on rogue delegates. It allows you to do that without disrupting the convention. This is really quite a document. Now, Sandy, I'd like you to come in and share what's on your mind. And this is our executive director, Sandy Toth. She's been with me for 4 years. We've had really some excellent time together, and I could say a lot about her that is very complimentary, but suffice it to say, she's a patriot, she's a constitutionalist, and she's sitting in a wheelchair, confined to a wheelchair with a great deal of pain most of the time, in ways that you and I don't even imagine. And yet she's fighting for this nation and the Constitution like few people I know. Sandy, come on board and tell us what's on your mind.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for being on our broadcast. One of the things I want to point out in listening to your concerns, okay, and this is the beauty of the delegate resolution. We're avoiding the compact situation by having each state pass their own delegate resolution, which commits their state delegates to voting for the Countermand Amendment. Now, the difference is we've got all the states coming in, they're doing the call, have that same delegate resolution. Okay? The state might modify and put some more penalties in there, whatever. But the point is, if we get at least 26 states that pass a delegate resolution, that will control the convention. And you will have that majority of states, not that one state is working on this situation or another state wants to push something else, and the delegates have all the leeway by not pre-approving the amendment. That's the big problem. But the amendment is being pre-approved by the state legislatures, and all these delegates are coming in, and they're all under that same type of delegate resolution, which commits them. So even if one group of delegates in one particular state want to go rogue, you're still going to have all the rest of the states that are going to follow that delegate resolution. And that's where the safety comes from. I hope I'm making myself clear with this.
Yes, you are. One of the things that I look at is that this goes beyond the concept I'm looking for. Is protections from any and all situations to the best ability possible for my constituents. So I very much appreciate your delegate convention resolution that you guys have put forward. I'm very much agreeing with what you've done there. Yet I still need to be fearful, or rather my constituents are fearful, and I need to be fearful for them, to address what happens if one of these other concepts gains enough votes to go forward. And that's why I think it's important to try to have something more broad-based, and that might be the situation where I borrow what you've done and just say, hey, this applies to any time anyone ever convene a convention, whether it be Article 5, whether it's countermand, whether it's term limits, whether it's whatever. that this type of a rule should apply in order to protect such a sacred document.
You know, Sandy, let me just interject a quick thought here, because what the senator just said really is a concern that Mike and I have been talking about. I cannot give you details because I'm not at liberty to do that right now. But believe it or not, what you just said is exactly what we're going to be able to do for the legislatures in no matter whose Article 5 amendment is proposed at a convention. And we're going to be able to do that in a way that will allow that convention to be completed in maybe 7 days, and safely and quickly, and with the legislatures as the sovereign deliberative authority that is governing that convention. What I would like you to do, sir, sometime after the show or before we get in touch with you again, is take a close look both to the amendment and the delegate resolution and see the issues that we're addressing in that delegate resolution, all of which are gaining their authority from the legislature. And if the legislatures don't hold on to their Article 5 sovereign authority, I don't think we can restore our constitutional republic. But we can't run scared. The legislators need to have some boldness. They need to have some faith in the process based on the delegate resolution. And I think we can have multiple amendments being addressed at the same time under Article 5 to address many different issues that need. Immigration might be another one. We have an immigration amendment. You say we have a balanced budget amendment. And I've been in this thing for 41 years, so it's not something new to me. I've been working on amendments either through Congress or state legislatures for that period of time. So it isn't something that we are bewildered about as to how to do it. We think we know how to do it. We're just trying to help the legislatures to see the wisdom in it, and hopefully they then will adopt it in a way that will make it a safe convention and get this nation back on track so we have a republic restored. By the way, after the hour, because we're going to go to, in 5 minutes, we're going to go to a break. After the hour, I would like you to stay on because I want to talk about our 34, 26, 38, 51 strategy. I think it's important that we address that, and if you can give us a few more minutes of your time, that is going to be an important concept for you to understand too, as to why Citizen Initiatives is going forward with that strategy. Okay, Sandy, go ahead and finish up.
Okay. One of the other incentives, I think, and you're talking about federal encroachments in one area in your state. But there's so many of them. I think we've forgotten. I mean, we don't even have the right to buy incandescent light bulbs. We've been going from one thing to control us to another, down to Obamacare, and now we find out how fraud was committed. And I think we really need to start looking at the fact that we need the Countermand Amendment so badly. If we don't do something soon, now we're being threatened with massive immigration numbers being made legal. And the president doesn't look at the fact that, we have unemployment problems with low-income people, and he's going to make it worse with that. Same thing if he goes against the Keystone Pipeline. There's so many things.
He already voted. Yeah, I think he voted against that already.
Well, no, he threatened to veto it, but it did not pass the Senate today.
Correct.
They were one vote short. But in January, it is conceivable that both the House and the Senate will pass it, and he's going to turn around and veto it. Anything to create jobs in this country. And that's what I'm saying. There's so many things that are happening that are creating a worse situation in this country. We do not have time. I have an urgency. Maybe because I'm an old lady. I don't know. But I feel like we don't have time to wait to get anything done because we're going to lose the country. It's going to get worse and worse for us to get anything done. And that's why I'm so concerned with seeing the Countermand Amendment move forward. It is a stroke of genius to me because it solves all these current problems.
And quickly, too.
Yeah. The EPA, that's like a new hell on earth. Obamacare, Dodd-Frank, executive actions like the DREAM Act, and now more immigration. Our military is being destroyed. There's so many things going on, and we need to get a stop on these things. We can't keep going on. And we're working to get the states to do the calls so we can have the convention, get it done quickly, and get it ratified. 34 states do the call. We only need to add 4 more states for ratification because those 34 states will want the countermand. So I think the whole process would go quickly if we can just get a little more sense of urgency and get something moving.
We only have 2 minutes, and I'll add to what Cindy is saying by saying that the countermand, whatever the president does, even his veto, would be countermand. We would be able to count. The state legislatures would be able to countermand it, and with 30 countermands, it would be rescinded. You see, it would force the federal government to say, hey, wait a minute, before we take an action or pass a law, we better take into account that what the will of the state legislatures are, because 30 of them could rescind this law. And that's where the power to the state legislatures resides. That's why this amendment is so, and it can be done quickly. We think that we could start, I say we, I'm enjoying this with the legislatures, but we could start countermanding specific laws and rulings in 2016. So we're really seeing a sense of urgency with this. Okay, Senator, please stay with us. I think we have to go to a break again at the top of the hour. We have been a little confused because of some technical issues that we had at the beginning of the show, but we're going to go for another half hour, and we would love you to stay with us. Now, for those of you in the audience, we thank you for joining us. We would like you to stay with us as well. We are going to have a station break and a station identification, and listen. We want to hear from our CPR sponsors, and as a result,
this is CPR Media Network, coming to you live from the USA.
My name is Christopher Perkins, Captain, United States Marine Corps. I spent 9 years in the Marines and led a team in Al-Ramadi, Iraq that risked its lives daily. Today, I'm a managing director at Citi, where I oversee a global team that provides safeguards for the $700 trillion derivatives industry.
Veterans, many of them have the right skills to be great bankers. And when they come in, they know how to make decisions, they know how to take risks, they know how to multitask. All of those things make them really great colleagues.
Just like we would go out onto the streets of Iraq, we would do an analysis of what risk we're taking and thinking about ways to mitigate it. It's no different here.
That makes them extremely valuable, and that's why we want them here helping our clients.
This industry requires our clients' trust. It requires a high degree of integrity. And so, just like the Marine Corps, your reputation is what it is, and your word is very important.
The design of the Ford Escape is clearly intended to grab your eye. Oh, and your foot. Huh, ain't that a kick? The Ford Escape with the foot-activated liftgate. Go open up something interesting. Go further.
You think you know the story of Dracula? You have no idea. But I'm going to show you.
My enemies threaten to destroy my kingdom. I want the power to save my family.
Dreams.
Welcome to your life.
My name is Dracula.
There's a room where the light won't find you.
What's happening to you?
I chose this. Because men do not fear swords. They fear monsters.
This is not who you are.
There's always a prize for power.
Everybody wants to rule.
I will not be defeated!
Dracula Untold in theaters and IMAX October 10th. The Ouija board has existed for centuries. It is used to communicate with the dead.
If there's a presence here, please make yourself known. This is a joke. Oh my God. It's not even real, okay?
It's just a game. Ouija.
We're saying goodbye!
Rated PG-13.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Huge margins.
We got 10 seconds, Senator. Just hold on for a minute.
Thank you.
Welcome back, folks. Thank you for staying with us. We've been discussing issues relating to the state of Nevada with Senator Settlemyre, and we've had a very insightful discussion, and some very important issues have been approached, and I think that the audience is learning just how powerful our Countermand Amendment is, but also how powerful the problems are that the states have to face. And as a result, with the Countermand Amendment, they can remedy many of those problems, if not all of them, based on federal encroachment. Now, if you want to learn more about citizen initiatives and the Countermand Amendment, go to countermands.us. That's with an S, countermands.us. Let us know how you can help us. If you want to make a donation, there's a donation button. You can sign a petition. You can send us a message telling us how you'd like to help us in the states. Petition drive, state directors, regional director. You may find yourself interested in offering legal services or just professional services of one kind or another. We welcome that help. Also, you can tell your friends and associates how they can listen to this program. Our broadcast is on cprworldwidmedia.com/live-radio. We are on that URL at 9 p.m. Eastern every Tuesday and 8 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. In addition, you can also hear us on pnntalkradio.org, and that's on 8 o'clock Tuesday nights also. That's a different station. However, tonight we want to discuss the issues of the strategy of 34, 26, 38, 51, and before I get into that, I want to give Mike Coons a chance to share something that he has on his mind.
No, go ahead, Charles. We only got him for about another 5 minutes, and we discussed it off air.
All right. Well, here's what we need to understand, folks. The reason that we can win is because of the strategy that's being advanced. Now, consider what I'm about to share, just from the standpoint of the practicalities involved. There are approximately 7,300 state legislators. There are 50 state legislatures. In order to force Congress to convene a convention under Article 5, 34 states have to approve that application on Congress. Now, it can be the smallest states for that matter, but let's assume it's evenly divided. That means that 34 states need to approve it, but only 51% of the legislators. So that probably gets us down to about 2,500 to 2,600 legislators that are needed to get the application process going. Second, when 26 states approve the Delegate Resolution, which binds the delegates, and we've had some discussion on that tonight, go to the website, the text for the Delegate Resolution is on the website. When 26 states approve that Delegate Resolution to bind their delegates, then that convention can be quick and safe, and in fact can be completed for a pre-approved text on the amendment in maybe 7 days. Third, we do need 38 states to ratify. All right? That means that we will need 38 states that with just 51% of their legislatures. And I think that with this nonpartisan countermand amendment, which benefits all states, we're not going to have any problem getting that. And then lastly, because it is 51%, we don't need a supermajority of anything. We don't need millions of people supporting it, even though there are millions out there that think that something needs to be done. We need a reasonable percentage in the state legislatures, and they then can restore our constitutional republic. I think that's a phenomenal concept that the state legislators ought to be excited about because they're the ones in charge. Senator, please share with us as you would like before you go.
No, I agree that that's something we need to worry about. I think it's very exciting to talk about the idea, and I hope it goes somewhere, that the states gain some sovereignty back and the ability for states to operate on their own. So, I mean, we were created, in my opinion, on the whole idea, if you look at the Federalist Papers of being incubators. Each state had the right to try new concepts in order to find success and to find failure. And then we can look at other states that have tried interesting ideas and learn from their successes and failures. And unfortunately, as a nation, it seems we've been homogenized into a realm where we're all just doing the same thing. And frankly, I don't exactly like what we've been doing.
No,
so I greatly appreciate the talk tonight, and I look forward to trying to find out some more information, and thanks for having me tonight. Unfortunately, I do need to get going to another phone call I got to take here in a little bit, but thanks again for having me.
Well, listen, Senator, I'm sure Mike Coons will be in touch with you in a short while, and we can discuss with you how we can help in Nevada. I am going to be traveling over the next 3 months in the states. I'm going to be going to Nevada also, and I will and to the capital in Nevada, and I will be glad to send you my itinerary. And if I can be of assistance to you in the legislature, whether it be in the House and or in the Senate, I'm available, and I would be glad to address any of these issues that we're presenting and the Countermand Amendment's remedy to your people.
I appreciate that, sir. I look forward to it.
Okay. Thank you for joining us.
Have a good night. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Have a good day, sir. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night now.
Good night.
Okay. Now, folks, we're going to carry on our little discussion tonight with our panel. We have Mr. Mike Coons, our National Director out of Alaska. We have our Executive Director in Georgia. And also we have our producer, Kelly Gordon, who is also our National Director and Texas State Director. So she's got several hats that she's wearing at this time. So, Kelly, did you want to say something? We've kind of kept you outside of this thing for too long. Did you want to say something at this point?
I just think that it's really important that we get the actual process of how we're going to safely define and control the actual convention. The countermand offers so much as far as remedy to all of the situations that the many states are facing, and still we have to get past the hurdle, the obstacle of getting the state legislatures and the people to stop being so afraid of the Article 5. When 34 states make a call for the Countermand Amendment, 26 of those states approve the corresponding delegate resolution that's going to define and control that convention. There's no room for mischief, because 26 approved delegate resolutions is going to control that convention with the 51% that we need.
Yes.
So it doesn't really matter what the other states there are going to do, as long as we have 26 that are going to adopt that delegate resolution that controls and defines the convention, as well as the delegates. It's the theory is sound.
Well,
we can't just send delegates to go and do it. The state legislators.
We're likely to have a lot more than 26, but the 26 is the minimum, and that is achievable. But go ahead.
Right. Yes, and it is achievable, and it is safe. This theory is sound. We can't just send delegates to go and write a remedy, because that is asking for mischief and chaos. That the proposed amendment needs to be pre-approved by our state legislatures. before the delegates ever walk into the chamber. That way those delegates know what they're there to do. That's all I got.
Well, thank you, Kelly. That was excellent. And I appreciate that. I really do. Sandy, did you want to complete some of your thoughts that you had earlier?
Well, to me, I hope that those in the listening audience understand what we're doing and help contact state legislators. They can call, email, they can put up the links to our website to send to state legislators and encourage them to sponsor it in the next session. Most of them starting in January. It would be a big help if many people got on board with that and started nagging and saying, yes, we want this done. Make this part of your agenda. As I said earlier, there's an urgency. Every time we turn around, more of our rights are being taken away, controls, fines from the EPA. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous what's going on. That they're controlling wood-burning stoves, or they're coming in and making rules and horrible fines. They're absolutely horrible fines to individuals and states, local communities, because of what the EPA, just the EPA is doing. And then if you add in Obamacare, killing jobs with the 30-hour work week, people have increasing premiums, higher deductibles. It is strapping everybody's wallet in this country that carries health insurance. It's almost like there's some way we're going to destroy this country and we're going to put all these controls. To me, it's beginning to feel like communism, which I have some familiarity with.
Wasn't it interesting, Sandy, how the representative from Missouri said that the EPA just sort of, again, picks and chooses what it's going to enforce?
Yeah, it's the same as our president. He picks and chooses, and then he gives them the authority to do that too.
Well, there's a reason why they do that. They have, for the last 40 years, the left has decided that because they had trouble getting through the culture, that is the way our representatives are elected in the states and in Congress, they would get their agenda passed through the courts. And then they expanded that to the executive order. And the stated purpose of a recent secretary for, or director for the EPA simply said from the beginning it was to get energy prices up so high that the alternate clean so-called energy could be affordable to people, or they would see it as a more attractive alternative. That was their strategy. And that's part of what they did through the regulatory agencies, through executive orders, and through court decisions. There's no fooling these people. They are smart. And they know exactly what they're doing, and their agenda has been succeeding. But guess what? The Countermand Amendment can stop them. And the state legislatures alone are the ones to make it happen. And so the audience needs to understand the importance of this. Now, I'm going to bring in Mr. Coons here in a moment from Alaska. He's going to be talking about the Second Amendment and perhaps some rulings that the federal government have made that have been denying the exercise of our Second Amendment rights to bear arms. But keep in mind, when you are listening to this program, these areas that the Countermand Amendment could apply to it. There's the Environmental Protection Agency, there's the Bureau of Land Management, there's the Department of Interior, rulings that adversely affect literally the states and the citizens. There's congressional statutes that adversely affect clients, congressional statutes that adversely affect citizens and states. There are Supreme Court rulings that can be addressed, executive orders, unfunded liabilities, states' rights of in a number of different areas, different amendments that need to be protected. the First, Second, Fourth, Fifth Amendment, the Eighth Amendment, the Ninth Amendment, the 10th Amendment. All of those can be protected with the Countermand Amendment. And nullification.
I don't think it would be too difficult to find 30 states that want to stop federal land grabs or Obamacare or Common Core.
I don't think so either, Kelly. I really don't. And I think you're right on top of things when you say that. All right, Mike, why don't you come on now? Well, we have some time. I think we have about 15 minutes. Come on and tell us a little about the Second Amendment issues that we have to address with the Countermand.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. Before I do that, this last year, this last 6 years specifically, but this last year seems to be an attack on the First Amendment, on our religious freedoms, attack on our First Amendment, on our freedom of speech, and the most recent one today is now coming out that Barack Hussein Obama wants to regulate the internet through executive order and fiat instead of, because the Congress has refused to tax the internet and to regulate the internet the way he wants to. Now he's trying to do it through executive order. Again, the Countermand Amendment could stop that. I don't know how many people are listening are firearms owners or want to be firearms owners or enjoy their freedoms with or without a firearm. But the Second Amendment protects all the other amendments. And what has happened in history is going back to 1934 is the National Firearms Act, which that's the one that most people think all that did was made it so that you couldn't carry a bazooka and a nuclear bomb. Really, what that did was made it so that, which is actually a part of the Internal Revenue Code, imposes a tax on importers, manufacturers, dealers, and transfers of short-barreled rifles and shotguns, machine guns, and silencers. It requires the registration of such firearms and prohibits their unauthorized importation. That's all it does. It doesn't do all the other things that the far left wants to tell us. The Gun Control Act in 1968, that is when this was the reaction of post-Ted Kennedy, JFK assassination. What most people don't understand is, where did the 1968 Gun Control Act come from? The 1968 Gun Control Act was introduced by Ted Kennedy and Senator Dick Durbin, that we have now as dad. That came from Nazi Germany. That is the registration, the firearms registration law that Adolf Hitler put together at the start of his reign of terror when he took over Germany. Let me read you a quote from Adolf Hitler, and I got this from the Second Amendment primer. The most foolish mistake we could possibly make would be to allow the subjected people to carry arms. History shows that all conquerors who have allowed their subjected people to carry arms have prepared their own fall. Adolf, you ate a gun. That's what you killed yourself with. No, it wasn't just the cyanide. Then you got the Firearms Protection Act in 1986. Actually, that actually was a good one. That was actually a Congress that actually said, we were going to start protecting us, the firearm owner. This is one of the beauties. When Glock first came out, that plastic gun, the undetectable handgun law of 1988 makes it illegal to possess a newly made handgun that cannot be easily detected by metal detection devices. That became about because Glock came out with the lower receiver on their pistol of polymer, although what Durbin and Dianne Feinstein and their ilk did not want everybody to know was that there was metal in the trigger, there was metal in the slide, and there was metal in the barrel. So it was one of those, one of those silly ones. And then finally, the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, which is the typical way of the liberal speak of trying to make this sound like it's something that it is not. The Brady handgun law, all that did was added to the 1968 Gun Control Act by making a requirement for nexus check, where that the dealer has to call into NCIS. They have to check the person's criminal background before they can release that firearm. And the problem with that one is that there are states that most of the states under federal law, under 68 Gun Control Act, you have to fill out a federal form when you purchase a firearm at a firearm dealer. Now, you do not have to do that when you're buying personal to person, because that's private property. It's a different situation. But when you fill that out, there's a series of questions that you have to answer. Are you a convicted felon? Are you an illegal alien? Have you been adjudicated as mentally deranged? Have you been dishonorably discharged out of the United States military, etc.? And any one of those questions, if you say yes, then you are not allowed to have a firearm, period, end of conversation. The problem with that is up to Nixis, and even after Brady, when a felon fills out that form and says no, even though they are a convicted felon, the federal government has not come in and arrested those people. The arrest on those forms has basically been zero since the 68 Gun Control Act happened. Now, that's just kind of the really fast, down and dirty. The beauty of the Countermand Amendment is that since the 1968 Gun Control Act, the 1934 NFA, the Brady Law, right on down the line, all have violated our Second Amendment rights. We know it. Yeah, we have good constitutional lawyers that have said it. The Supreme Court's actually upheld it, and just most recently, we can, with 30 states, and you got to understand this, there's 38 states that have shall carry concealed carry laws on the books now, with 4 states with constitutional carry. You could get 30 states that could countermand all of those gun control laws, and we would have freedom again reigning, and there would be no more question about that issue ever again. And Charles, we got 6 minutes, I guess, and you got to go to prayer here in about 3. Charles?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay.
After this program, folks, you will be able to tune in and listen to DJ Carpenter, and you will also, on other nights, be able to listen to V. Wright, a very insightful program that deals with very current issues that need to be understood and presented. You'll also have Craig Anderson and Diane Sori in a very delightful program that is very hard-hitting, and it's called, my goodness, I don't have it here. Oh, the Right Side Patriots, I'm sorry. And so look at the schedule that is on CPR Radio, the CPR Worldwide Media.com, to get the times and the shows that are going to appear during the week. Now, we have 2 minutes. We're going to close with a short prayer. I am a Christian man, and those of you who feel offended, just be still for a little bit and just either go away or stay with us and realize that you can pray in any fashion you want. But I do believe that the Lord needs to be brought into our work with this Countermand Amendment. So I'm going to look to the Lord now and ask God's favor on this work. Lord, we come in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. We thank you, God, that you have had your hand on this nation for 200 and some years, and actually there's evidence of your unseen hand going back to the Mayflower Compact. There is an enormous amount of benefit that this nation has been responsible for, that has benefited other people, not just in America, but around the world. We've not been a perfect nation, but at the same time, Lord, you gave us a value set that literally no other nation has, and you codified it in the Constitution of the United States. And so we're asking that you would help us to preserve this Constitution, that you would give the state legislatures the understanding that they do have the sovereign authority to restore this constitutional republic. And Lord, we pray for the resources, we pray for the wisdom, for the people, for the various areas of need that we have, that you would provide them and bring honor to yourself. We are trusting you for the victory, God. We believe that you have not lost interest in America, and we also believe that it is your purpose to restore us one more time to being a God-fearing people that is operating on the laws that you have given us in the Word of God. So we ask this in the name of Jesus, and we thank you for that. Now, I know we still have a minute or two, and I would like to thank the audience for their attention and for their participation tonight. I would like you to consider helping in any way you can. Go to countermands.us. You can make a donation. We are about to spend several thousands of dollars in a 3-month traveling tour. We will be visiting the capitals of every state, or about 40 states, and that takes money. So if you want to help us in that arrangement and that travel expense, please do so. Click the donate button and just send us what you can. On the other hand, you may want to help as a director in the states or a supporter, and let us know that. There's a contact form at the top of the page at countermands.us, and you can let us know how you can participate in this tremendously important work that we are doing. So it is with great gratitude that I thank you for being part of this show tonight. Thank you, Mike and Sandy. Thank you, Kelly. And we'll look forward to meeting now this coming Friday at 8 p.m. That will be at CPR